So finally in the workshop, we got the mighty yellow wagon. So this thing's been off the road for about 4 months now. And in all honesty, it's needed some work for, well, probably since the last MOT. So we got a few bits and pieces to do. This is kind of my track car slash, well, you take it to shows and stuff. It's a bit rough around the edges. It's got over 200k on it. I think it's on 224k now. Obviously 2.8 manual, all that stuff. So you might have seen it in previous videos. But yeah, she needs some love and attention. So the coupe's on pause. No, it's not. We got stuff to do on that. But yeah, we need to get this car sorted. It doesn't need a huge amount of work. The engine and box needs to come out because I've got a few oil leaks and a few mods I want to do, but I'm not going to do that at this stage. Basically, the plan here is get the front jacking point welded up. The roof needs re-wrapping. I've already pulled it off camera. Basically, the original black wrap had just gone really flat and matte looking, and all sort of like mottled. So pulled that off. A little bit of prep work needs doing, and that can be re-wrapped black, just a sort of temporary fix. But yeah, we need to sort out this jacking point. So I can show you. This one is definitely well past its best. So I can get my hand up in there. So we need to get that addressed. So first protocol, obviously get the sides go off, get the car up in the air, and then we can have a better look at what it needs. There we go, and that's the sides go off. So if you're taking this off a standard car, you'll have a selection of white clips at the top, so this trim just pulls away. Be prepared, you usually have to replace some of these. They're usually brittle with age and break. And then on the underside, you'll have a selection of clips that go in through the holes on here. Right, there we go, that's the car up in the air. Nice and high, so easy to work on. If your jacking point is rusty, driving a bit of wood, if you've got a lower 36, you just jack on the chassis rail. Put your axle stand on the chassis rail, that's lovely and strong. So you can kind of see the extent. This jacking point is absolutely non-existent. Last MOT it was looking pretty frilly, and then obviously of course another year has passed and it's been out of MOT for about 4 months now. So yeah, a good prod around before I put the car down in, you can see just how bad it's got. So it's had some previous repairs, it's just all shot. So what we need to do is get all of this outer skin off. It looks like the inner floor is going to need some sort of repair as well, because that looks like that's going. And then rebuild the jacking point using the similar technique as what we did on the coupe. So basically with a thick bit of bar and a thick bit of plate, get that welded in, and then obviously add this outer skin back on. We might have to take the wing off just so access is a bit better, because it looks like this rust sort of does bleed forward a bit. So that's not a problem. These wings have been off before, they're not the originals to the car, so they'll be nice and easy to come off there. Just the usual bullshit with the top of the wing. Obviously you can't take the wing off without disturbing the bonnet on these, so that'll be fun. But yeah, shouldn't be too bad. So we'll get this wing off and then start cutting into it and seeing what we're left with. So to get this wing off, there's a few bolts that need to come off. First things first, you've got these 10 mils under here. You can tell if a car's had a replacement wing at some point in its life, because from the factory these bolts should have seam sealer around them. So like obviously on this car you can see there's no seam sealer. I replaced the wings about 5-6 years ago, so we need to pop them off. 10 mils. Then you've got a couple of bolts behind the door. Might be tricky to see with the light. You've got one down there, and I think, yeah, there's one up there. So basically where the hinges are, just beneath. So there's 2 bolts there. And then when you come around into the car itself, you pull this trim up. You've then got a selection of wing bolts. You'll be really careful, these love to shear the head. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. These have been off before, so you should be fine. You need to loosen This bolt here needs to come completely off. This front one needs to be loosened. You can then slide the bonnet up or out the way and you can pull the wing out. Just be careful to not damage your screen. And then you've got some 8mm that live up in there. Now if the car is all like proper original, all your arch liners, it takes a bit more time. My car, it's a track car, I've had it stanced out, so there's no arch liners. There's minimal sort of front under trays and stuff. It's just quick and easy and practical. I don't use the car in winter, so I don't need arch liners and stuff on it. But yeah, a few bolts and bits and pieces. So if we get them off, then we get the wing out of the way. And of course, don't forget, there'll be a bit of wiring for your side lights. Right, I've just whipped out the 10mm from the hinge. Got to be careful because the bonnet will move when you take these out. And I've pulled off the indicator at the front, which is pretty simple using this clip. Just put a screwdriver down in the hole there. So now that wing should slide off quite nicely. Bosh, there we go, that's the wing off. There we go, and now we've got better access to have a good look around here. Looks like that front corner is pretty solid, which is ideal. We want to firstly get this outer skin cut off, sort of up to here, get rid of all of that, way back to sort of here where it's nice and solid, and then we can have a look inside. So first port of call, let's get the grinder fired up then I reckon. We'll wire wheel this front corner just to see how far it's gone. Obviously we don't want to go too far forward if we don't need to. So really what I'm trying to do is just figure out where exactly I want to get my slitting disc. I don't want to spend loads of time cleaning this up because it's a waste of time and you're breathing in crap. So I'm just trying to figure out where we've got clean metal with no pitting. So it looks like this corner here, we need to come sort of back to like here, come along here, and then ideally we want to step down before we get to this. We don't really want to disturb this if we can avoid it. So come down here, and then we're going to go all along here, and it looks like I can't see any real nastiness after this, but I did see this little bit. So we're going to come right along here and then go straight down, and then on the underside you can see there's lots of brown staining around this, so all of this is probably rotten. So here we're probably going to come back to about here. This all looks pretty good and clean, so we're going to chop that off all the way to there, all the way along here, grab this corner, and on here we can avoid going around that bend. That's ideal. So we'll probably cut the disc something like that, and then that should pull this out skin off, and then we can start to deal with what's in here. That is the remnants of our jacking point just there. So yeah, that's what's left of the jacking point, not a lot. And that abomination in there, but if we can get this out of skin off, we should be able to have a better look at it. So before we go too crazy cutting out, it's ideal if we can cut some nice straight edges, or try and follow some nice straight edges. So I like to mark them straight. When you cut your repair panels, it's a lot easier if you're working the straight edges. Right, now we've slipped through that, so we just got to get this piece free. We will have some spot welds on this inside edge to deal with, but sometimes they'll just pull apart if they're quite rusty. If not, we'll have to put a disc on them. But that's kind of the general gist so far. So there you go, you can see how rotten that is. As usual with these cars, they just rot from the inside out eventually, so obviously at some point people do repairs to the seals, but in reality there's no point. Once it's gone, it needs cutting out and proper surgery like this bad boy. So you can see all the crap that builds up in there. Lovely. It's no surprise it rots out really. The main thing to look out for here is just looking at this piece of metal. You can sort of have a look at where the rot is and make sure you've cut out enough so that you're back to clean metal. So on this top edge, yeah, we're back to clean metal all the way along here, all the way. It's a little bit crusty in that corner by the looks of it, so we might come a bit further out here. But yeah, for the most part, pretty happy with that. So next up, to get that inside edge out, we're going to run the wire wheel along this seam, find the spot welds, drill the spot welds out, and then this whole panel will come off. There we go. Once we've pulled out the spot welds on the underside, this lovely flap of metal is pretty much ready to come off. A hammer and a chisel is good for splitting seams of car metal apart. That's the piece we've removed, so you can kind of see what it looked like from the underside. Pretty bad, to be honest. Lots of holes, so, and pretty gnarly from the inside. But you kind of get the gist. It's important to get searching and make sure you get back to nice clean metal, because you don't want to be welding. Although that looks pretty solid on the outside, on the back side it's pitted to buggery. So yeah, we want to be back to nice solid metal all the way around there. A little bit of light surface rust obviously cleans off, but anything that's deep pitting, dark brown, you need to avoid that. So like for example, all of this I'm happy with, but up here, that's just on the limit of what is okay to leave there. This will clean up, but this corner, there's brown stuff right in this corner, so we'll need to cut a bit more of this out here, I expect. But yeah, that piece out. You also get a pretty good idea now of what the car looks like with that outer skin gone. Obviously that lives there, so with that out of the way, we've got to do some repairs to this inner sill, because that's pretty crusty and deformed. That's a nice simple right angle. This needs to be cut off here and here, get rid of that jack and point, because we're going to make that new. And then this, I think this is just like a reinforcement for the A pillar. It sort of comes down, so we just need to tie that into the jack and point. So again, we'll probably just cut that along there, get rid of that nasty crusty bit. So next thing is let's get a slitting disc and go right through this mount and through the back edge and including the back piece here. So straight with a nice disc. That's our front piece cut off from there, so you can see how that joins up. So we now need to remove this side piece and the back piece. This can be quite tricky. The front one's pretty straightforward because you put the disc in at a nice easy accessible point, but these side ones you've got to kind of cut at an angle to get most of the rotten metal out, so you've got to be a little bit careful. That's part of the front A pillar structure, which is in the way, so we've cut that off. It's rotten anyway, so, but again, up to nice clean metal generally. So now we've got the bulk of this mount out of the way. There's a little bit left in there. We've got to take a bit of this off still, but I want to cut this inner floor out to give me better access to get up in here. So again, it's pretty rotten here, obviously all the way to there. There's holes here and this underside, so I'm gonna put my slitting disc through there, take a line up to say here, probably do it higher up to about here, and then come down and do it a little bit lower here and get that piece cut out. You do need to be careful because obviously there's some wiring the other side as well as your carpet, so you do need to be mindful of that. Ideally you want to lift your carpet out. And that's now the bulk of the inner sill cut out. So I still need to to this corner, so I think I'm gonna have to dissect this down to here, pull this out, and then chop this front piece of this off, and then I can get to this inner piece here. But what I do need to do now is go in and pull the carpet up, because I'm at the point where I can't risk cutting any further in because there's wiring and stuff here. So yeah, fun stuff. Let's pull the carpet up, and then we've got a bit better access and without the risk of setting fire to the wires and stuff. So yeah, coming along nicely. Once you get all the crap cut out, suddenly it looks a lot less scary. It's very scary when you've got stuff lying everywhere, but not so bad now. And there we go, that's that all cut out and pretty much ready for welding. Maybe a little bit of prep still to do in places. Right, nice little progress update. So everything is clean and prepped now. Squared off these edges as best I can. I've cleared the inside the car, lifted the carpet right up, and moved the wiring away. I've just put this bit of wood between the floor and the wiring, so the wiring isn't sat on the metal getting hot. There's a little bit of sound deadening there, which I've sort of chipped away at. Ideally you want to take the whole carpet out to get a lot of this off. I think it's flammable, I can't remember, so I just have to be a bit careful. But yeah, just trying to get too much heat into it. So that's all prepped. I need to have a good sweep up, because yeah, the mess when you're doing this stuff is just, yeah, it gets everywhere. You end up filthy, everything ends up filthy. So yeah, quick tidy up, and then we should be pretty much ready to start making some plates. So the plan of attack is, first job is we're going to make a simple plate here. We could do the whole thing in one piece. Well, I've not got any huge long lengths of metal, so I'm just going to do one piece here first. So that's a nice easy right angle. Obviously these two edges are nice and square, so that's dead easy. Then we'll come to this piece, which again is a nice simple right angle, and cut that off. If your floor has gone further forward, I'm really lucky here. Literally, I mean, there's a little bit of pitting and stuff like here, but nothing really to worry about. But if your floor starts to go around there, then the repair gets a bit more complex because this bit wraps up. Thankfully, this is a nice, easy right angle repair. So we'll do those two plates, and then we can get onto the jacking point. I've also just had a bit of a clean up. You've got 3 drains on the back of these sort of box sections. My box section is lovely and solid, no real rot in there, which is nice, because these can rot out. A little bit pitted there, tidy it up, and just clean around these 3 drains. So that's all ready for some rust treatment and cleaner, but it's all still solid. Even though the metal's like pitted, it's not dark rust, so it's cleaned up pretty nicely. So yeah, let's get these plates made up, and we can start to weld this section in. The inner seal completely sorted, so lovely and solid. I haven't cleaned up this edge too much because it doesn't really matter, it's on the inner seal, but just ground flat these areas where the outer seal will overlap, so it's nice and flat. So just taking these bits back, won't worry too much about that, that's fine. But yeah, that's done. So now we can jump on with making our jacking point. So if you've seen my previous videos, we'll be using a bit of tube which will get welded kind of like there, obviously in the body, and then for the lower pad, some nice thick 5mm plate, and then yeah, we will have to do a little bit of making good with this A-pillar sort of brace. So we need to triangulate that into the jacking point, but we can worry about that later. And then lastly, this outer seal. So yeah, not too bad. What I'm going to do now is get some weld through primer on this, just because some of this might be a bit more tricky to access once jacking point's welded in. And the same goes for in the car as well. We might be able to see much, but yeah, all of that's welded down there, so that's great. Okay, so now we've made the jacking point itself. Here she is. So that's quite simple to make. It starts off with the tube and the plate. Cut the flat plate, cut the tube. You can see where I've marked out. This plate is 100mm by 100mm, and then I've just measured out using the original jack pad. You got the size of this, I think it's like 36 by 18mm, something like that, and then just transferred it to there, and there we go. So obviously there's a nice little angle I've cut for the tube so that the tube fits around the tube in here. As you can imagine, it's kind of like that, and then that gets welded up into there. That's it, something like that, like so. Just be mindful that when you weld these, the lower sill actually tapers off a little bit. So if you can see there, obviously this is vertical, but this has a taper on it. So when you weld this in, you don't want to weld this too low like that, because then your outer skin won't come on. So what I would do is make sure, if you take a measurement using your ruler, and see how much room you've got. So obviously when you cut this original panel off, if you measure to there, I've got roughly 40mm before it curves, 40mm. So what you can do is put that on there and just measure down and make sure you've got 40mm from this cut on the sill down to here, or at least 40mm, and then you've got clearance. It can't be too far away because this is designed to actually weld onto this plate, but it can't be too close because then the plate won't sit properly. So you have got to be a little bit careful there, but that's basically where that's going to get welded on. So we can fire out the weld and get that smashed in there now. So we've welded in our lovely jacking point, so it's nice and solid. What we need to do now, or what I'm going to do now, is I still need to brace up this A pillar, but I'm going to jump through and get this outer sill cut and trimmed, ready to weld in there. So you can buy these complete sills on eBay. This is a saloon sill, that's all you can buy. There's no coupe ones available. So if you've got a coupe, you can use these. You just have to modify the front section slightly. The back section works perfectly, but on the touring, obviously it's basically a 4-door still, so it's got a saloon sill. So this is what we're going to use. So I've just taken some measurements down from here to this swage line and marked them out, give myself a little bit of extra, but essentially I'm just going to whip that off with a cutting disc, and then yeah, we can fine tune it with a flat disc to make sure the fitments is nice and good.
Doesn't know I've done this. He's out there cutting the seal.
Look at the spacing there.
Mine's not that rusty.
Right, I must confess, I made a boo-boo. I've sorted it off camera, mainly because this video would be about 4 million hours long. But basically what I did was I preemptively whacked this jacking point in without having this outer seal piece with me to trim and get the sizing right first. So as you can probably see from my glorious repairs here, I'd had this angled up too high, and then it needs to be spot welded to this lower seal piece, and basically yeah, it was like probably up here, because what you want to do is trim this first and then eyeball to make sure that that's pretty flush. It sits roughly about there with the jacking pad. If it doesn't, you're going to have a massive void between them and you're not going to be able to get the spot welds onto that welded to here. So what have I done to rectify that, I hear you ask? Well, I basically cut a sliver through these two, or through this tube, put a little slip through here, bent that down, re-welded this lip, and then put a replacement bit of tube once I got the right height. It's a bit messy, it's not ideal. It's structurally sound, of course. which is like the only important thing really that I'm worried about. But yeah, when you do this method, obviously the height is critical, so yeah, have this piece ready, trim this to fit the seal, and then you know what height this piece needs to be sat at. Don't do what I did. And then that's our lovely little piece for the A pillar. Nothing too fancy. That's just going to get welded into there, and then that continues down the front seam, so we can weld the outseal to that, and then ties that A pillar stuff into the jacking point. Lovely. So we can get that welded in now. Obviously a bit of weld through primer on the back, get some weld through primer on some of these places that might be a bit tricky to reach in a moment. Right, we've got some mega progress. So I've added a nice little brace in there. Just use some 1mm for that, nothing too thick. So it's seam welded into the jacking point and up to here, which is beautiful. Everything's now weld through primed, looking good. Jacking point in there. And then last piece, I've just prepped the outer panel, so obviously trim that to suit. These are galvanised, so you do need to be careful. You don't really want to breathe this in, so anywhere that's going to get weld on it, I've ground down the galv coating. And then on the back side, done the same, ground down the galv coating, and then etch primed or weld through primed the whole thing. Again, just to give some extra protection on there. We will cavity wax once this is done, but this will, you know, add some level of protection. So that's now ready to be welded on, so we'll get that smashed on and call this job finished. Let's get it done. There we go, that's now finished, all seam welded in, lovely. Spot welds under there. We're going to clean up the spot welds on the bottom side, flatten them off, and then flatten this up. Doesn't need to be completely hidden because this car's got side skirts. You can see what I've done on the back there previously, just taken the top of the welds off and left it. But yeah, pretty happy with that. So that's mega. Obviously this will need a cavity wax inside and a body coating on there, but that's kind of the welding fabrication side covered. So that should give you a good idea if you're going to do a weld repair to your jacking point as to what to do. But yeah, hopefully this one's been useful. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.